All right, hey everybody, it's Coach Greg here, Coach Brad with me tonight. Coach Dustin is away. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. And tonight it's gonna be a really deep conversation. It's something that we actually have not talked about before in here, and I titled this episode "Calling on Courage." And so I want to do a bit of a deep dive into courage, but it's probably not going to be the conversation you think it's going to be. I'm going to come at this from a different angle, a unique angle. We're going to connect it to the weaponizing process and why I think this is so important for where we are at right now today with the level of violence that we're all facing in the world. Things are getting worse. This is a very important topic, so I hope you stick with me. Back in 30 seconds, and we're going to dive deep on calling on courage. Hey everybody, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Greg LeBoeuf, and I'm sharing insights for how I went from the victim of a brutal attempted murder to weaponizing my mind and body, mastering the tool of violence so that I can protect myself and my family from violent criminal assault, and how for the past 30 years, I've been helping good people just like you do the same. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, everybody, okay, we're back. Tonight, calling on courage. I said that I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to this. So let's jump off and start where most people think we would start, which is let's define courage. Now, if you look in the dictionary, I looked it up just before we jumped on, and I found 5 or 6 slightly different variations on the definition, but the central theme is this. So just let's go simple. Courage is doing something that frightens us, right? That's it, right? It's acting and doing something in spite of fear. Now, there's a deeper definition, which I think is good too, but courage is the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Okay, so the general gist of this, that most people get it, is doing something that scares us. Now, how I kind of want to look at this is, and why I think this was such an important topic to talk about, is because we're talking about violence. We're talking about how do we weaponize against predatory violent criminals. Now, violence, remember this, interpersonal human aggression is the number one universal human phobia. Okay, now let's just unpack that so we make sure everybody's on the same page here. It's the number one universal human phobia. Well, what's a phobia? I mean, if you think of somebody and said, oh, that person had a phobic scale response to small spaces or to snakes or spiders or to heights, most people would go, oh, I get it. They don't just dislike heights, snakes, spiders, and small spaces. They had a phobic scale response, meaning what? Whatever they're afraid of, whatever the phobia is, when they even perceive that they might be experiencing that, it goes, like they lose control of their mind, they lose control of their body, and typically they lose control of their bodily functions, right? So a phobic scale response is the extreme. And what we're saying is that the number one universal human phobia is interpersonal human aggression, violence. When a member of our own species debases and dehumanizes us to the point that they can kill us, with no more difficulty than stepping on a fucking insect or slaughtering an animal. Okay, so that means that if you took a room of 1,000 people and you mixed them, as diverse a room of 1,000 people as you could possibly get, gender, race, religion, beliefs, it doesn't make a difference, as diverse as possible, and you take those 1,000 people and you throw deadly snakes into that audience, you throw spiders into the audience, you put them on heights, you put them in confined spaces, roughly 5% of that audience is going to have a phobic scale response. Now, there can be more that don't like it, they're uncomfortable, they feel elevated levels of fear to varying degrees, but we're talking about 5%, roughly 5%, that will have phobic scale reactions to that. Okay, lose all control of mind and body. Now, in any of those stressors that I was listing, anything that people typically have a phobia to, 5%. But if one person walked into that auditorium of 1,000 people and they had a machete, a flamethrower, a butcher knife, a gun, and they started murdering and slaughtering people, you're going to have a 95 to 97% rate of phobic scale response. You are going to have off the chart phobic scale responses because the number one universal human phobia is to be debased or dehumanized to the point that somebody can slaughter you like you're not even human. Okay, so I want people to understand the power that interpersonal human aggression has. Okay, Brad, anything you want to throw in off the power of interpersonal human aggression or off what we're talking about with courage so far?
No, I think again, I always like to come back. It's something we need to be aware of. Control follows awareness, as we've mentioned a lot of times,
Perfect.
and it is part of our makeup. We have to
100%.
understand.
100%. And that's a great one. Control follows awareness, which is, again, why it's worth talking about tonight. You need to become aware of these things. That's the first step to gaining control over it, right? So, when we talk about interpersonal human aggression, we're talking about the most intense fear, right? I've used the analogy of the three types of crisis, right? The natural crisis, the mechanical crisis, and the human crisis. And what separates them is that the human crisis is personal. So again, that's the interpersonal human aggression. It's what makes it different. That's why, a tornado destroying my house and putting me in the hospital, my family, or having a car accident, they're all different than, one, two, three guys kicking down my door at 3 a.m, burning my house to the ground, brutalizing, beating, raping, destroying me and my family. It's personal. It's done by another member of a species. It's the interpersonal human aggression. It's a completely different type of stressor. Okay, so I'm just really hammering that point because if we're going to talk about courage, and courage is doing and acting in the face of our fears, we have to recognize that weaponizing means you're acting in the face of or in spite of one of the most intense fear that human beings can experience. Now, everybody has a different predisposition. So to everybody, we don't share a universal reality, right? So the level of fear that, but I'm saying phobic scale response, the majority of people are going to have a phobic scale response. Okay, so now, how does this process, how do we begin to cultivate and train courage? Okay, well, here's where I thought we'd take a slightly different approach. We are saying is that, and what we do is we take people from zero to formidable, meaning that that is my specialty, zero to formidable. So you got really good men. They're willing. They have courage. They have all this stuff. Like they have the desire to want to protect. They're not ostriches. They're not head in the sand. They recognize that shit's getting worse in this world, and they're wanting to take ownership for their responsibility. They're not stuck waiting for Superman. They don't sit there going, "Oh, it's the government failed in society. It's the breakdown of society and all this type of shit." And it's the police will do this. It's their responsibility. Government this. All of that might be true, but they recognize I'm my own first fucking responder. It's me that is responsible for my safety and that of my family. So these are good men that have the willingness and they have courage. But yet, what stops these good men from actually making the transition from the willingness and the courage, right? Because it is there. But what stops them from transitioning and actually taking action and getting the training that they need? Right? They're at zero. The willingness and having some of that raw courage is not enough. Oh, it can save lives. There are good men, good women that have, with nothing more than willingness and courage in the moment, have put themselves into harm's way and saved lives. But a great many of them are lost in the attempt to save lives, whether that's physically because they don't have the training, they don't have the skills, but they have the willingness and courage, but they are murdered. So they fall, they become part of the casualties. That doesn't take away from their courage. It doesn't take away from the willingness. They're fucking heroes. But our goal has to be to have those valuable resources, the people with the willingness and the courage, to get them the training so that they can become life-saving, forces in those dark moments, not just for other innocent people, but for themselves. That means they can enter into harm's way and come back out of harm's way and continue to be good contributing members of our society. So that's got to be the goal. And yes, we're going to lose warriors along the way. That's part of it. That's the reality of it. But what stops them, if they have the courage and the willingness, what stops them from actually going, fuck this, I need some training? Because, Brad, I've been doing this 30 years. You've been around for almost 24, 25 of those years. You've seen this as much as I've seen this. I talk to so many people where we talk to people where we can identify them and go, that's a good man. That is a good man who has it within him. He sees it for what it is. He's connected to what's happening in this world. He's a family man. He's a provider. He has the willingness. He has the courage. But he doesn't convert to the training. He doesn't, and now I don't care if it's with us or with somebody else, but he doesn't do it. And so when we look at this, is that, and I'll pose this question to you and you can fill in on it. Is that because when it comes down to actually having to take the action to say, I gotta fucking do this, I have to get the skill sets, does his courage waver in that moment? Is it a lack of courage in that moment that stops him from actually beginning the process of the warrior's journey? Like, okay, so I'll leave it at that. Let you chime in on some of your thoughts, and then I'll throw in what I think.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually having a hard time formulating an answer to that, because if I see, I'm processing in the moment in my head right now.
Okay, let me do this then. Let me throw out a couple questions and see if this helps kind of sort some things. Like, you got a good, no one's arguing. We got a good man.
We have a good
He
man.
has willingness, because, see, it takes willingness and it takes courage to look around the world you live in and go, some things are not right. Like, our justice systems is fucked up right now. It's broken. Our bail laws and the qualification for bail, like, we have repeat violent offenders. Like, we're like, shit's broken. To just recognize that and not start pointing fingers and this is somebody else's problem and they're to blame, because that's a victim mindset. Now, there's a truth to that. There are flaws in the system. There are people that are more that have contributed to these things, all that stuff. But you can't sit there pointing fingers, because it's a fucking victim mindset. Mm-hmm. So these people see it for what it is. They can accept it. So that means it took willingness and courage to do that, because many more stay in denial. They rationalize, justify, minimize, make excuses, or flat out refuse to see what it is. So that takes courage and willingness. But then they do nothing. They recognize, I don't have the training on the skills. I don't know what I would fucking do. But they don't go in the train. So is it because, here's the excuses. Is it because they don't have the time? Is it because it's not convenient? It's not close to them in location or proximity? Is it because they don't have the money? Is it because, they have so many other responsibilities? They're just busy at work. It's just, I got young children. It's a not a great period in my life. Like, these are all, that is not even the tip of the iceberg of all of the excuses that we hear. So is it those things, or what is it? Is it the fact that their courage wavers? Now, you have some stuff formulated, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of even where I'm at. I'm like, you have a good man. You've identified that.
Yeah.
He has the courage and the belief system to protect himself and his loved ones, right? That's kind of where my head's at. Like, this is the man that we're dealing with. In a moment of crisis, he has the courage to stand up for what he believes in. So what stops him from taking action to actually back up his belief system with the skill sets needed to do, and maybe, but not to do, to get the result that he ultimately believes that he will accomplish by standing up for what he believes in. So now, with that being said, and this is kind of this struggle that I have, because it's like, well, then why do you have this man that believes that in the face of violence, to protect himself, his loved ones, and even a good person in society? So what stops them? And that's where my thing is like, well, you have this belief system. So I could only draw the conclusion that you don't think that you need it. So you either think that you're good enough to do it, or there's all those other things that you said, like life factor stuff. And I had one more in my head that it's time. You said time, but I'm saying time in a different way. Time is in the fact that, like, what are the chances? It's probably not going to happen. Like, that type of time, right? Yep. Like, I got, like, like,
I got time. Yeah, 100%.
No sense of urgency, right? Yes. No, like, you believe all this stuff. You're going to stand up in the face of violence, but you have no sense of urgency. You don't think it's necessary for you to take action today. And that's where I'm just like, I don't know what that is, because there is something there. And I know that you probably have your own insights and thoughts on it. But I can't identify that moment, right? The only thing that I could really put it down to is the analogy or the story of, like, the dog sitting on the porch and he's sitting on the nail. and the old man sitting there rocking in his chair, and his dog's there, and neighbor comes up and he's like, "Your dog's sitting on the nail. Why doesn't he get up off the nail?" He's like, "Well, it doesn't hurt enough." Right? So that's why the dog's still sitting on the nail. So, that's the process that my head went through with the question. It doesn't hurt enough yet for people. They've never got a stimulus that says you got to take action today, or that powerful enough of belief saying, I'm lacking here. I believe that I'll stand up in violence, but I just don't know what the fuck I would do. You know what I mean?
100%.
That's where my head is at. So like, I may have spewed a lot of just kind of my thought process of deciphering the question, but like to identify there is something there, and I can't put my finger on it, but that's kind of where my.
No, I love it, and your analogy is actually going to tie in with what I'm going to say. So I'll share my perception on it, and then I want you can see where I'm at with that. You can give me some feedback on it, but. I started off by really wanting people to understand the number one universal human phobia: fear from being debased and dehumanized by other members of our species up to the point that they no longer see us as human and therefore could slaughter us with no greater effort or concern than stepping on an insect or slaughtering an animal. That is intense. And it's only when you recognize how intense that is. Interpersonal human aggression, violence, is like looking into the fucking sun. By comparison to the fear of a confined space or the fear of snakes. Now, listen, when somebody's in a phobic scale response, it's all relative. So someone in a confined space who's having a phobic scale response is feeling the same intensity of fear as somebody facing violence. What I'm saying is more people have the phobia from interpersonal human aggression. It's a more widely held fear. So this is why more people have an aversion to studying, talking about preparing, training, and violence. So you have to understand how the fear, the interpersonal aggression is the fucking sun. Again, that's my analogy. Now, let's go to the other side of that, because you nailed it. People have the belief. Your beliefs and how you feel. Your beliefs are connected to your emotions. You feel something about something. And when the things you feel the most strongest are the things that you believe and hold to the dearest to you, the things that you believe to most be true. Those are your strongest beliefs. So when you look around and say, listen, our justice system is fucked. Mental health care is overloaded and overworked, and it's not working. And we've got repeat violent offenders out on these streets committing heinous acts against innocent people with very, very few repercussions, if any at all. It's it's dangerous right now. It's fine. So people see this and they have a belief that the world is getting worse. Listen, we're not saying there's not great people in this world. There's lots of beautiful things, lots of beautiful people to see in the world. I always temper that because it's not just doom and gloom. But you can't, when the sun's out, there are shadows. So it's okay to step in the sun. It's okay to focus on the sun, but you can't ignore the shadows and what lurks in those shadows. So when people have these beliefs and they see it, and then they have to, so now here's where the process starts to tick away. They see it and go, holy fuck. What most people do is they want a buffer in there because what's lurking in the shadows is fucking intense. So that's when we go, well, what the fuck is my government doing? People voted in the NDP or the UCP, or they voted in the PPP or the AAA or the DD. I don't give a fuck what government's in or what its acronym is. People will look and go, it's their fault. They did this, they did that. They cut funding here, they cut funding there. Okay, great. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe it had the impact you say it did, maybe it didn't. The point is, where are we at today? What's happening now? If you don't like it, get out and fucking vote. Get out and join the political system. Run for office. Influence. Take action on it. But don't sit there and bitch about it. But why do people complain about it? Because that's the buffer. It's not my problem, not my problem. So they have the belief, they see it, and then they want to diffuse responsibility from their belief. Because when you have a belief, now this is important for people to understand. When we have a belief, our belief exists on one of three levels of intensity. I always call this like fuel. Like there's cheap fuel out there. You want to go gas your car up? Imagine if you bought a Lamborghini, you got a high-performance vehicle, and you went to Domo gas station with the lowest, shittiest octane of fuel, and that's what you put in that high-performance engine. So that's what we would call an opinion. When you have a belief that is low octane fuel, it's just an opinion. And your opinion, when the wind changes, your opinion changes. Because you got no fucking you got no power in that. One level up, one higher octane level of belief is called a belief. Like, no, I have that belief. I don't just have an opinion, I have a belief about this. That's got more legs under the table. That's higher octane fuel. It's going to run a little more performance out of that shit. But questioned enough, somebody questions you enough, if you see enough things, that belief can switch. You can, if the wind blows strong enough, you'll flop around in that wind. Now, the highest level of octane of belief, the fucking jet fuel, right, that gets the most performance is the conviction. When you have a conviction of belief, conviction is where people take fucking action. Beliefs, people will sit there and flap their fucking mouths all day long talking about their beliefs, wanting to be right and proving you wrong. But they won't take action. Real meaningful fucking action. And when you just have an opinion, any action you take is recreational at best. And you'll just change. One week you'll do it, one day you won't, one day you will. You don't give a fuck. So what I'm getting at is that you can have people that have these beliefs. Man, the world's getting worse. Our justice system's broken. These bad people are out there. Fuck, the police response times are down. No one's coming to save me, man. Like, I genuinely believe this. Now, is that an opinion or a belief? But here's the thing. You got to remember something. So you go, no, I have a belief about that. And then somebody would say to me, no, I have a fucking conviction about this. I am passionate about this. Yeah? How long you been training? No, I haven't done any training. Why? Oh, I'm super busy in life right now. I want to. I used to train. When I was, I think I was 7 years old, I took Taekwondo for a year. I think I got to the second belt. I don't remember what color that was and stuff like that. I got my kids in jiu-jitsu. They're doing jiu-jitsu. I was thinking about joining with them, but, work's busy. And then I kind of got this back thing I heard like that. Oh, you have a belief. Now, remember, if what you have is a belief, you might talk passionately, but you don't judge somebody by their words, judge them by their fucking actions. And now, if you have a belief, you go, well, geez, Greg, isn't a belief pretty good? I mean, it's the middle kind of grade of octane fuel. You can get some performance out of some beliefs. Yeah, you can. Now look to your right, because across the table from you is the fucking sun. Interpersonal human aggression is the motherfucking sun. You think violent predator criminals have an opinion about whether it's okay for them to violate your rights or take your life or hurt you or rape or murder or do any of those fucking things? You think that's an opinion? Do you think that that's a belief of theirs? Well, maybe today I probably, I'm having a conscience, I probably shouldn't. No. They have fucking conviction of action. That guy that pushed a woman onto the fucking LRT tracks in January because he didn't like the way she looked at him, shoved on the tracks, fractured her skull, almost severed her fucking leg. She lives, but she's living with fucking life-altering injuries. And what happens to him? He gets served. He gets convicted for 22 months, but he's time served in the remand, and now he's only got 80 days left to serve. That happened in January, and in a couple months, less than 3 months, he's fucking out free because he didn't like the way she looked at him. Because he also knew that the justice system has no fucking teeth. And when he gets out, geez, did this guy have a criminal history before this incident in January? Oh shit, he did? Oh, I'm shocked. So he's already reoffended. Could have cared less if he killed that lady. Could care less if she lost her fucking leg. What's he gonna do? Oh geez, I don't know. That was somebody looked at him. Not looked at him mean, just he didn't like the look on her face. My point is that side of the table, violent predators, they have a conviction, right? The interpersonal human aggression, the fact that they're willing and look at you like you're fucking not even human, that has the intensity of the fucking sun. So now here's the thing. Why don't they do it? The only people that don't take action and actually go like, listen, the threat's very real. And you don't invest in training at all? Oh, for sure, it's because you don't quite have enough time. You're super busy. I'm fucking busy too. We're all fucking busy. Oh, whatever. No, it is because the fear is far more intense than your beliefs are. That's what stops it. The fear is far more intense than you believe. Because let me put it to you this way. Someone says, I understand all this stuff. I'm going to start training. Do you know what has to happen when you start training? This is why I would say we specialize in 0 to formidable. Taking somebody from no experience, 0, and moving them to formidable. Do you know why I love that portion of training? I've been doing this for 30 years. I could take people that are already have a good base of training. When you work with military, law enforcement, a lot of the individuals have a pretty solid base. They have good experience. I could take and work and say, hey, listen, you're pretty formidable. I could take them from formidable to tactical. Let's just let's get to a high level. Let's make you elite. But that's not what I like. That's okay. That's what I've been doing that with guys like you, and we walk that journey. I love 0 to formidable, and here's why: because it's the hardest. It's the heaviest fucking lifting. Because just to get somebody to say yes to start the process, you have to teach them how to reinforce or strengthen their belief to get over the first hurdle. And so when somebody says, oh, geez, I don't know, I don't have the time, this, that, like the second you say yes to training, guess what's happened? What have you had to accept? And this is exactly what you just talked about, Dan, Brad. What would you have to accept as a truth, an undeniable truth? Before, like the second you say yes, there's 2 core things that happen the second somebody says yes. The first thing that you have to accept, okay, is that it is going to happen to you. It's not just possible, it is fucking probable. Anything is fucking possible. A fucking helicopter could fly over and 30 ninjas could rappel out of that. Is that possible? Yeah, it's fucking possible. Is it probable? Holy shit. Not even fucking close. Is it? Not even close. Is it possible? Yes, not probable. You have to start going, look at the justice system. Look at the example I just gave you. These, how you think it's one guy out in the street like that? Holy shit. People would shit their pants and not want to leave their house again if they understood hundreds, if not thousands of people with this type of criminal predatory behavior and a history. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. Are walking the streets and interacting with us. And no, they don't have little shock collars on that keep them in the inner city. Well, I don't live in those types of neighborhoods. I don't go to those types of neighborhoods. I don't hang out in those types of places. Oh, yeah. Okay. Last Friday, or May 5th, the mother and daughter come into school, and the 2 young daughters, and the guy brutally murders them outside of their school. It happens everywhere. There's no leash on these people. Okay? So, the first thing that has to happen is you have to go, holy fuck, it's not just possible, it's probable. The second thing that has to happen, and this is where I really want to get your take on this, because I see this very clearly, and I'm not sure a lot of other people feel the weight of this. The second thing that has to happen is the second you go, fuck, it's actually probable that me or my family or that I am in the area when a violent assault occurs. It's far more probable than I ever would have wanted to realize. But the second you recognize that and you say yes to training, you instantaneously accept the responsibility to have to do something. You can't deny it. You can't ignore it. You can't turn away from it anymore. You can't use denial. You can't pretend you didn't see it. You were too far away or you were already busy on your phone. You get what I mean? Responsibility is a very powerful word. And a lot of people, I think, get it. Imagine saying yes to a responsibility where life and death is at stake. That is a terrifying fear for a lot of fucking people to take on. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's like you imagine something happens and whether people live or die falls on your fucking shoulders. When you say yes to weaponizing, when you say, yes, I'm fucking getting the train, I see this shit, and whether I like it or not, I remember this day, and even to this day, there's a fear that comes along with this. Every time that I say yes to somebody new and we start training them, I feel the fear for them, for me. Because the training I'm providing has to fucking work. Like there's a responsibility on my end to work with them so intently and so passionately to really help them actually be able to use these skill sets. Because in my mind, I believe that they are going to need these skill sets. They are going to be on scene, their own first responder, that is somebody else. And if I don't take that seriously and if I don't push them in the right ways, you get what I mean? Like, it's terrifying to me to fail them. And that's if I'm just thinking about them. Now, I've thought about it for myself. When you say yes, if I'm out somewhere, which out of the dozen or so times that I've used this training, real world, in defense of my life or somebody else's, my life has been the target 4 or 5 times. 7 or 8 times, I've been in the vicinity, on the scene, and been the first responder for somebody else. So it far outweighs than it coming to me. Man, I'll let you jump in this, but like, if you think about that and just you think that saying yes to training is like, should I go swimming today? I thought about swimming. I feel like swimming today. I'm going to go swim. So I sign up and I get a membership at my local rec center so that I can swim in the morning. If you think signing up for, I hate this word, self-defense lessons is the same fucking thing as just saying, yeah, well, I want to get out of the house. I could lose a few pounds and wouldn't be nice to meet some people, have a hobby. Well, fuck, you're in the wrong, shut this off right now. That ain't us. You're in the wrong fucking place. Okay, so that is heavy before you ever get there. So the fear is the fucking sun. So what level of belief do you have to fucking say yes? Now I'll shut up and let you fill it in.
Yeah, you know what? Like, there's so much in this conversation, and like when you hit the word of the responsibility, it's like that's people admitting that they have the responsibility.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like as a father, whether I have training or not, I believe. See, but I'm biased, right? It's like,
yeah.
But it's like, how do you start a family and not take on that responsibility for your children's safety? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that kind of came in my head during the conversation so far is that, we do have people, they say, well, yeah, I would totally defend my family. And a lot of people will. They believe that they will, and they will. But part of this conversation is like, yeah, you could have the best intentions to save your family, but if you can't do it because you're not equipped and prepared for it, then that's detrimental to not just your survival, but your family's survival. And it's one of those things, because now if we talk about belief and we talk about conviction, right? The biggest way to figure out if you have a belief or a conviction is in a moment of crisis, right? But that's also the last fucking place you want to be figuring out what you actually have, right?
Yep.
So, like, again, like, and I know I've mentioned this before, like, it's very easy to say something when we're in our intellectual mind, we're having a conversation, and a lot of people do this. They have that conversation, they say, listen, yeah, 100%, I would defend my family, or I'd defend this, or I'd stand up for what I believe in. But again, like, if you don't, you're not there. When you're there, it changes.
Yeah.
Now, I believe there's a lot of good men out there, and I believe a lot of good men are going to do everything they can. But at what point do you say, I don't have the fucking skill sets? They have the best intentions in the world. And it's like, so I think where I'm trying to circle back and maybe taking a long way to get there is, if you truly believe that you have the conviction to protect your 3.5-year-old daughter, right? Just using my situation. Mm-hmm. And you believe that it is probable in your lifetime, then you're right. What other course of action do you have?
Yeah.
Right? If I believe that it's probable that I get in a car accident in my lifetime and potentially my family's in there, what safety measures am I putting in place? Seat belts, child seats, those types of things, right? Practice as safe of driving as I can. But like, I'm taking an action for that. Mm-hmm. I think that responsibility, the word of responsibility to me, takes belief and turns it into conviction, and ties everything together to you. You have the, like, how do you not take action when when it's true? When it's truly your responsibility. Now, here's the thing. The one word that I have been thinking about in this conversation is honesty. Because when you're going through this process, which is a deep process, there's a lot of work here. Honesty, you have to be very fucking honest with yourself, right? And that's scary. A lot of fear that people have is partaking in a conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah. 100%.
A
Couple things that you hit on that are good too, right? Is like when you like you say that responsibility has weight, and so people have this level of belief, and you say, how does that, to take on the responsibility turbocharges your belief, right? Because you have to have that, conviction of action, because that's what moves people in action. Well, like again, like you talked about how a lot of people say like, no, I believe in this and safety in this. So like I bought a safer car. I bought the best crib. I bought the best car seat. Like they'll take actions like this. When it comes to training, it's like there's a process, right? So like if I wanted to drive, I then go and take a driver's course, get my driver's test. Like there's procedures. So when people sit there and look and go, listen, this is the way the world is. The world is dangerous, criminal justice systems, all this type of stuff. And when they truly accept that, what comes with it is, like you said, the ego disappears, and you go, okay, well, where do I go? What's the process? Where do I go? Like, and they go, like, obviously I need training, because if you've never had training, like nobody would go in the military and go, oh, I go straight to the battlefield, do I not? Like, people go, oh, there's boot camp. Obviously they got to train me. They can't just throw a uniform at me, some camouflage, and say, okay, well, we'll get to your training maybe someday. Yeah. So when like again, this is where it takes the courage to say, well, something scares me. What's scaring me? Well, to take on the onus of responsibility for my safety and my family's. It's so much nicer when I go, well, really, I mean, yes, I might have to do something, but in all honesty, that's why we have police. That's why we have government. That's why we have lawmakers. And that's why we got to vote out this government, because they're soft on criminals. And okay, good, then vote them the fuck out. But whether they're soft on criminals or the government's hard on criminals, they're still going to be fucking criminals. And they're still going to be on the streets, and they're still going to be committing acts of violence, and you still have a high probability that you become that target. So don't pretend that it ends there. Don't pretend you have a conviction of action. Because a man who's a conviction of action is fucking trained. They're fucking weaponized. They've left no stone unturned. They don't just sit there and say, well, I bought a safer car, so now I sleep good. I don't have to do anything else. The car will do all the work. No, that's fucking stupid. I bought insurance for my house, so I don't have to do anything else. Now you still change the fucking batteries in your smoke detector. You still have a fucking fire alarms, and you still have fucking fire extinguishers, and you still have rope ladders, and you still have a fire plan for how to get people and kids. You get what I mean? You still have got to do shit. So in this, if you're taking, when people, for them to say yes, they cannot. When you truly own the responsibility, you're training. You're training somewhere doing something. Now, maybe that's why you started jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's why you're doing karate. I don't give a fuck, but you're doing something. That is more like, again, I judge somebody by their actions, not by their fucking words. Because nobody's that busy. Nothing's that inconvenient. Nothing's that, like, when you have a conviction, you can look at people that have convictions that work with like PETA and organizations like that. They're in a little rubber fucking dinghy out in the fucking open ocean, cutting off whaling fucking ships in their rubber dinghy. Like, those people have conviction. They're willing to fucking die on that ocean. They're willing to die for those whales. You know what I mean? Like, but they're not back at home. They're not standing on land with a picket sign and then saying, well, it started to rain. I should probably get home here. Like, they're saying, hey, we're getting one of the Zodiacs and we're heading out to cut off that whaling ship. You coming? Yeah. Unfortunately, very busy at work right now. You get what I mean? Like, you had a belief. You showed up, but you don't have the conviction because you ain't jumping out there. So this thing for me is like, that's the weight of the first part of your courage. Summon your courage that if you see what we see, if you're seeing what's happening, right, see it for what it is, recognize you have to do more than talk. You have to actually start fucking training in something, in anything. Start training. Don't sit there and say, I bought a gun just for this reason last year. You live in Canada. I'm not saying you can't use a firearm in defense of your home, in defense of your life at certain times, done in certain ways. Everybody must read Barry Holland's book, No More Mr. Good Guy, to figure out what the legalities are around that, because it can. But we do not have concealed carry. There is so much of the time where a firearm is off the fucking table. It's just that is an insufficient answer, and everybody that has a firearm that spouts it knows it's an insufficient answer. You're hiding behind it. Just because you go, well, it'll be easier, and that's what I happen to be good at, and geez, wouldn't it be nice if I could just have a gun because it's so much easier? And it is easier. At times it is easier. At times it is the superior weapon in many situations. But we live in Canada. We don't have it. It's not on the table in many, many ways. So shut the fuck up about it. Go out and lobby, run for government, change laws, fight to protect the laws to keep our gun rights, 100,000%, but recognize the limitations of it. Carrying a knife, carrying a gun, all that shit is not the total solution of it. So stop hiding behind it. And start recognizing that when you take the responsibility, you got to train. You got to train all around. You got to have a system. And something that is designed for violence is preferable. But at the end of the day, do something. Okay? Do something. Okay, Brad, you had a comment and I went on my rant again, so fire it off.
Yeah, no worries. You know what? It's you, not you. But I'm just like, like when you look at that responsibility, it's me.
100%.
And it's you. And it's the people listening, and it's Dustin, and it's the Max, it's Costas and Peter. Like, it's you. Like, the responsibility, when you take that, you know, and I kind of like wanted to go back on my car seat analogy for comment, because I'm just like, I went and bought a thing to solve that problem. That thing actually didn't solve my problem. It aided in my in the solution, but it's not. The car seat alone is not the solution, right? The seatbelt alone is not the solution.
Yes.
Right? Going out and buying a gun and use it and say, "Well, I got a gun." Well, that's not the solution, because that's hardware, right? It's you. It's you, the individual, the man, the husband, the father. It's you. You have to invest in you, not a fucking knife, not a fishing bat that you put in your car and say, "Well, I got this fishing bat that I got from Cabela's and I drive around with that," and, you know, like, or I got a baseball bat behind the door, or I got whatever it is. All these things that people say that they have, like, well, that's not what you're investing in.
Yeah.
That's an inanimate object that's going to be wielded by somebody who has no idea how to actually wield it,
100%.
because you haven't invested in you. Because at the end of the day, when you're faced between yourself, and like, I'll use Dustin's saying, because I know how much he cherishes it, and I'll pay homage to him today. It's like, it's not about what's in front of you, but who's behind you.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, and it's like, I don't care what you fucking buy, if you don't, if you, the individual, are not equipped to handle what's in front of you, then at the end of the day, you're taking on extra risk for the people that are behind you.
100%.
Period.
Yeah. Now, that's awesome. Well said. And if just to connect back, I titled this calling on courage. Well, what we've just spent the last 40 minutes talking about is the courage that most people are never going to see, and most good men won't even acknowledge they need, or won't acknowledge that they've stepped into or accessed. Just today alone, I met with one guy today, got another couple guys later this week, but I met with a gentleman today, Brian, and right from the second he walked in the meeting and sat down, he had no idea how much courage it took to do what he did. Because what I saw in front of me, and this is, again, might seem simple to people, but it's not. When I first started talking to him, when he emailed me after he saw one of our ads and stuff, he emailed me. And, you know, right away, I understood where his beliefs were. I understand where his fears were. You know, again, why, you know, he can feel the fear that he has for his wife when he works out of town lots and his wife's home, and they've had a couple incidents already. He feels the fear in himself and saying, I know I want to. I know I would try. I hope I would try, but I also don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But all of that I heard. But when every step from the first email to the phone call to the second video or phone call or message that I sent him, each one of those took courage for him to reply, for him to move one step further down the process. And then today to say, okay, now we're taking the next big step, which is let's sit down and meet face to face. See how it's becoming real? Now, what it is not me. I'm not trying to sell him shit. It's not him like, oh, the fear of a commitment to a process and money I might have to spend. No. Our process is helping people recognize that what you're about to commit to is to take 100% full responsibility for your safety, the life and safety of your family, and other innocent people. Now, here's the thing. The good news is, like you talked about, when you buy a car seat or you buy a smoke detector, whatever, there are things helping us. The police, we need the police. I'm glad the police are there. And by some really crazy miracle, they're there before somebody gets the opportunity to assault me. They see it developing and they arrest, shoot, detain, whatever they got to do. Hey, that's awesome. But remember, they're not the first responder to the scene. They're typically the first responder to the bodies. Because shit's over by the time they get there. Then they launch the investigation and try to bring people to justice. And we know how well that's going. Not for the fault of the police. They're just as frustrated with the revolving door court system as everybody else. But you get what I mean? It's like, so we're happy. We'll take any help that we can get. If I'm in a life and death situation and a good Samaritan, another person comes by who happens to be weaponized, who happens to be trained on any level, or who just happens to have the natural courage and strength to put himself in the harm's way and come to my aid and help me, I am fucking eternally grateful for that. But I recognize how rare that is. But when I saw him today and he came in, I could see he was nervous. And it's not the nervous like, oh, I've never met this before. I'm nervous to meet somebody new. No. And then when we sat down and started talking, two things. One, when we really start talking and start getting into it, I could see the weight of what his decision was, this decision that was now put in front of him. I could see the weight and stress in him. But as we talked a little more and I shared what the process is and how we walk people through the process and how we, again, how we do this, I could see the stress and the fear and the weight being lifted. Because in order for somebody to say yes to accepting the responsibility, they won't do it unless they know that there's a process to help them become successful. Why would I take on the responsibility, something that terrifies me? Why would I say yes to doing it when I go, well, saying yes pretty much equals absolute certain fucking death? Because there's no, A, I don't know a solution, and B, the solution, if there is a solution, I don't think I could do that in a million fucking years. I'm just not that guy. I'm not that physical. I'm not that skilled. I'm not that athletic, whatever it is. No one would ever say yes to that. It's only when they're sitting there going, this terrifies me, for reasons that they don't even fully understand, because the weight of it, the intensity of the sun, interpersonal human aggression. You're saying, yes, when I see somebody and somebody is in a murderous state towards me or other innocent people, I want to be a life-saving force in that moment. That's fucking heavy. That's intense, staring at the sun. Nobody says yes unless they have a faith, a trust that someone has a good pair of fucking sunglasses strong enough to allow you to look at it, and not just look at it, but fucking thrive, to understand it, to deal with it, where you go, I can fucking save lives, I can make a difference. And you know what? I'll say it, and you think I'm arrogant or not, there's a fucking high probability that I fucking come out of this one on top. Fuck them, doom on you. You think evil? Fuck you, doom on you. Like, is this not the confidence and certainty that we need? But that only comes from working a process, from other people that have had the experience and are sharing that with us so that we can have the balls and the courage to say yes. Because, if you knew you were going to, I don't know, you know where I'm going with that, right? That analogy hopefully sticks. Because there is absolute courage in knowing that you will not survive and doing it anyway, because it's the right fucking thing to do. And that's a possibility. But what I want is training gives people the highest probability, not just possibility, the high probability of not only saving life, but surviving that. And so, yes, maybe I don't survive it, but you got to play the odds. And training makes the probability of not just you surviving, but you thriving infinitely higher than when you have no training at all. So this is where I wanted people to understand, because I get this question, what is courage? Well, it's doing the things that terrify us. And the fact that you start, that if you're starting the process, you're in it, you've already tapped into tremendous levels of courage, and most people don't even know it. But it's like, if we can recognize how we did that, and the fact that we did do that, then it's easier to do it again. And once you start training, if we expand this out, what gives us the courage? Because when shit's happening, we're like, holy fuck, man, I don't want, like, this is terrifying. What gives us the courage is that instead of focusing on the fear, instead of focusing on and looking at the sun and letting it burn the shit out of your eyes, you just focus on the mission demands and the mission commands. I know what to do. I've got a plan. Do this, do this, do this. So it's like you put the glasses on, the lenses that are protecting your eyes. So now you can see violence, you can deal with it, you can take actions, and the sun doesn't have the same power. You get what I'm saying. So this is kind of how I thought we could, kind of look at the conversation on courage, because right now, and this is just my analogy for this, or my terminology for this, but I call this, the front fear. You need courage to overcome the front fear. The front end fear is what is stopping good men from training and making all the excuses seem absolutely true and unsurpassable, unsurmountable in the beginning. I just am so busy. It's just not convenient right now. It's not the best time. I think in a year, at the end of summer, I got people that have called and I'm just so busy right now. No, 100%. Because if violence, I'm sorry, when did you have your violent assault scheduled for? Was it for 6 months from now? Because that's convenient. Because we need at least 4 months. It's an hour private once a week. 16 weeks. That's roughly 4 months to get the foundation process. So if you know that you have 6 to 8 months, then that gives us more than enough time to build the foundation. So absolutely, I mean, like there's probably other pressing matters that demand your attention. So level of belief. You know what I mean? Hey, the whaling ship's going out. Are you committed to this cause? The Zodiac's right here. Let's go. I'm probably more of a late fall kind of guy. So, this isn't super convenient for me right now. Opinion, belief, or conviction. Where does that person lie? Violence is happening right now. Violence doesn't fucking ask. It doesn't give a shit. It's not going to allow you time to prepare. If you have time and you don't find yourself facing a violent situation, then that's the greatest gift you're ever going to receive, is the time to train, tune up, prepare. So don't abuse it. Don't take it for granted. Right? So I don't know. Is there anything else? Hopefully, again, I've tied, because there's so much more that we can talk about on courage. But, for those of you that are training in anything, and the reason that got you, starting to train was, I want to know how to protect myself and my family. If that was the decision, the thought, and you took an action and started training in something, I just want you to know how courageous that is. It is super fucking courageous, because whether you fully understand to the degree of the heavy burden of responsibility that you have taken on, the opposite side of this is the intensity of the sun. That interpersonal human aggression is the number one universal human phobia. It is the number one stressor in this planet. It causes more PTSD and post-traumatic, like all that. It causes more physical and psychological casualties than any other type of phobia. So that decision is one of pure courage. And I applaud you for doing that. Recognize that. And let that fuel you to continue to train and turn yourself into a life-saving force in a dark, critical moment for yourself, your families, or other innocent people. It is admirable. And I believe training is also how you pay back the debt that we owe to those that have gone before us, those that have served, those that have fought for our freedoms and fought for our rights. We owe them a debt. And being sheep and being victims, or having the victim mindset, is not how you pay back on that debt. You pay back by saying, I am physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually committed to protecting my way of life, my rights, my freedoms, and my security, and that of my family and my community. And if you never, ever have to use the skill sets, if you never, ever have to deal with violence in your life, at least you know that on your deathbed, when you pass away, you paid back on that debt. You stood on the shoulders of other warriors who earned us these freedoms, these rights, these choices that we have in our life. Because we live a very beautiful way of life where we are at in this world. We're very, very blessed to be in this part of the world. right? Because we do have those freedoms, we do have those choices. So that's my feeling on it. So you are courageous. That's how we call on our courage. And then from there, we just continue to fortify and build our courage so that it becomes like a switch, something that when we need it, it is there. It will not leave us in our darkest moments of need because we have control follows awareness. I'll circle back to what you started. Control follows awareness. So that's mine. So I don't know, anything you want to throw down range, Brad, on courage or?
Yeah, real quick for me, just to wrap up, is even asking these questions of yourself, is courageous.
Yes.
People don't often answer these questions. It's deep work because they don't want to know the answer, right? Because again, it leads you down that path. Well, whose responsibility is it? And I think that again, like that is courageous to do those things, to ask those questions of ourselves. And I think the other thing is too, what is also courageous is when you do ask those questions is not to think that the sheer fact of answering those questions and knowing that you don't have the answer or the solution to it does not make you weak. I think in society, we have this misconception that seeking that I don't know how to protect my family. Well, you're a fucking pussy. No, you're not a pussy. It does not make you weak, right? That's the negative male ego. I think that is kind of shines a light on that. The perceived social contracts of what that means. I think that's part of it. And if you could look past the fact that you're going through the process and answering those questions, tremendous amount of courage in that. And fuck what anybody else says, because it doesn't make you weak asking those questions and coming to whatever solution that is or whatever the answer is. That's your answer, and it doesn't make you weak.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, well said, man. And a lot of men need to hear that, and I'm glad that you said it because, yeah, that wraps this conversation on courage up perfectly. So very, very well said. Okay, everybody, we're gonna wrap this one right here. Again, we could go deeper, but I think the main point that we wanted to hit is here. So as always, I'm gonna thank you for listening, taking the time. Time is the greatest gift. You never get it back. Thanks for sharing and investing your time with us. I genuinely hope that there's been a return on this for you, that you are moving more towards safety and awareness. That's huge for us. That is our mission and our purpose. This, again, for us is a calling. We don't wake up every single day and think, how do we grow our bottom line in this company? We wake up every single day with the single driving force and passion of how do we help make good men safer? How do we make our communities safer? How do we make our cities safer? How do we weaponize? And that's the mission of this. And it cannot be accomplished alone. Those of you that are listening, sharing, taking the time to give us a rating, give us some feedback. 5 stars is what helps us reach more good people. So please share, like, comment, rate us. Take the 90 seconds that it'll take. It truly does make a difference. Every single day, our numbers are growing. We're reaching more good men, and we're finding the right men, the men that are courageous enough to ask themselves these questions, answer these questions, and accept the responsibility and become a weaponized protector. And that's the life mission. That I couldn't be happier with the way that we're going. So thank you so much. It's because of you guys. So, all right, Protectors, that is it for us tonight. Stay ready, real, resilient, relentless, and ruthless. Stay safe, stay weaponized. We're going to chat again soon.